Okay, part two. It was media, education, Hollywood, and the government. It was brought in to all these by design and on purpose. And sad to say. Okay, John Paul II revealed regarding spiritualism throughout history being brought in everywhere through the empires, Egypt, and all the rest. And John Paul II mentioned that the contemplative life would bring the world to them, and a unifying thing in spiritualism. That's the three frogs one, and one here is uh, oh boy, well, the deception of the frogs from the Advent Message Ministry. I would really recommend that, seeing that online. And I've got these a couple of pages of the videos and so forth here to get to you somehow. Liberalism, popularism, make the false true. Okay, and what happened in Europe? There was all these programs, basically out of the RCC Jesuits, to take down the truth, take down Christianity, and so on and so forth. Uh, okay, rationalism, relativism, skepticism, higher criticism, critical thinking, antinomianism is no law. That's partly from Gnosticism that was brought into the Bible as well. And that was brought in through Origen. And you'll see that. I'll mention that here in a minute. Um, okay. And then, of course, we have when Wesley came on the scene, actually the two brothers, uh, Christianity was dead in Europe. It was lifeless. And then you have the Dark Ages, which was 1260 years, and it was actually shortened as prophesied um, by the Reformation. And but it was 538 to 1798, and in the 1500s you had Martin Luther, and then John Wycliffe. He was the first major one, but the Waldenses kept the truth alive and the Bible, and and got to John Wycliffe and helped him out with information. And so, very important, all these little details and steps. The Great Awakening came with John Wesley. Uh, he actually found a group of Moravians from Germany that still had powerful Christianity and true Christianity. And his preacher associate, George Whitefield, revived the United States. It was a massive revival, personally, and it even got into laws. And they would say, they would try to find out about their pastors, if their pastors were actually converted in these churches. And John Wesley, he revived England and prevented a French Revolution there, because that's generally a plan. Work with the country, put it through some steps, and then take it down, like they did with France. And now it's like pedophilia has basically been legalized in France. It's a slippery slope. Uh, and John Wesley, went 200,000 miles on horseback from preaching to preaching to reach the people in the country. And he left 250,000 faithful followers there that prevented what they wanted to bring into England. And eventually, we know that it was taken over, and now in inner London, of course, is the part of the false trinity. That's where they control the finances and the resources of the world, basically, right from there, combined with the Vatican and Washington, D.C. That's the three that control a lot of control in the world. Okay, then another common history is the global advent of Christ awakening worldwide in the 1820s and 1830s. And there was books written like Gaussen of Germany that was widely circulated, and others. But the U.S. actually led out, and it was active in Europe. I believe it was in Sweden, perhaps. Children preached because they even outlawed the adults to speak on it because they just wanted to just quiet it up. Uh, and it was powerful. Um, there was publications. All churches were involved. There was about 5 churches at that time: Congregationalist, Methodist, Baptist, uh, Episcopalian, and Presbyterian. And the preachers and elders got into it, and it swelled the churches. It brought in new members. And in 1801, though before that, there was discontent by a lot of people, and they were searching for the truth, and the Christian Connection formed, and that was quickly it was like 200,000 members. I mean, 20,000 members, and that brought in intuition. Intuition. That's very interesting. Is it intuition or is it real Holy Spirit faith, active Christian life, minute by minute covenant situation, hourly connection, minute by minute hourly connection with the Lord, and truth, living by the truth, having the mind of Christ, uh, and the salvation, salvation's daily. And we get a record in heaven of our character, attitudes, and life for us, for our salvation, and not against us. Okay, they were kind of bored at that time because there was dividing doctrines, there was so forth and so on. It's like lifeless. Okay, it was basically overtaken by these 4. I'll mention 4 false ones, and they basically relate to spiritualism, false Christianity. Okay, once saved, always saved. Predestination, and once someone is, if someone's professed, they're accepted Christian or professed, then they will be saved and forgiven of all sin. It's like a false. Those both are very, very false. And so, in Sunday sacredness, that spiritualism, Catholicism, the universal church supposedly, and it's actually globalism and political religious spiritualism, and it's very, very false. The natural immortality of the soul, that is serious spiritualism right there. And so they were basically hoarded, changed. They want the Christians to see a false Christianity, so that's what the world sees. And they say, oh, well, why not just be on this side? If they're almost here, why not be there all the way? Okay, the nature of Christ is very important, and that he was actually, the false one is from the Catholics, is he was divine in the flesh. What does the Bible say? No, it doesn't say that. It's the opposite. He came in our flesh, just like we are, our fallen flesh, after the fall, so that we can all overcome all sin and all temptation, Satan and self and the whole thing, just like he did. He was our great example. And the Trinity is a pagan Babylonian 3 in 1. That's not true. I'll get to that in a second. And Christian Connection had Sunday sacredness as their very important, very central, and spiritualism, Catholicism, and Arianism, that's Unitarianism, downplays the Holy Spirit, and it opens it up to the wrong things, demonic angels, etc. It says that Jesus Christ was created at some point in time, so that's not true either. And the Old Testament even mentions gods, and it's more than one God in heaven. And there's 3 great eternal powers in heaven, eternal. Okay, and transcendentalism came in, and that is spiritualism coming in. And so, but they did it and there was a transcendental club. It was mysticism, even Hinduism, Hindu thought. And there were some key people from Harvard that were part of this, you see. And that's, of course, where Skull and Bones is, and other groups like that. It was either Ralph Waldo Emerson or David Henry Thoreau, or both, that were involved in this, involved in Hinduism and so forth, the thought. And Walt Whitman as well was part of this situation. They make it sound good, and but it's really a negation of the truth. And then see the Advent movement, the Advent awakening turned into the Advent movement. It was God's great final movement to separate the truth from error and set up the one true worldwide church to rebuke and to bring out the truth and save many, rebuke the RCC worldwide church and false church system. And then there was in the Advent movement, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, the first great apostasy was Kellogg of the cornflakes. He became a superstar of health and prevention with the Battle Creek Sanitarium, a massive operation. The famous would go to him. He got into pantheism, and Lucifer actually led him, inspired him. He got into that God was in the grass and in the water. It was spiritualism, nature worship. And so he wrote a book and even got it into people in the movement thinking that this was, that he's bringing out new light and so forth. It was false light. And let's see. And see, Arianism, there was two false versions of the powers in heaven. Arianism and the Catholic Trinity. And so Arianism came out of Alexandria, out of Egypt. And those two, Egypt and the Vatican, had been colluding together to ruin the Bible, and they actually colluded together to bring in pagan Easter on the false day, to have a Sunday pagan Easter. And they brought in Gnosticism through Origen. You can see the 12-part series, excellent, by Clinton Schultz on YouTube. The first one is The First Protestant Reformers, and highly recommend number 10, The Reformers and Revelation 18. Very, very important. All of these, but especially these two. Okay, so these two false versions were agitated in the world, and then they pushed in the Catholic version to take over, as far as the globalist accepted version of it. Okay, so we'll be back for the next part.